welcome back to House Call Auto Repair. Today we've got a 2014 F-150. We're going to be replacing the front brakes in it. We already did the back brakes, rebuilt the parking brake system. We're going to be replacing a pair of rear brake cables, and we'll see how that goes. But for the time being, we're just going to be doing the front brakes and rotors on this F-150.
Go grab the keys for you.
Well, welcome back again, guys. We got a 2014 Ford F-150. We'll be replacing the front brakes. This vehicle belongs to Chris, otherwise known as Howie from 723 Productions. There's a link in the description for his channel below. Feel free to check him out. Let's get started. We're going to get the jack underneath this thing. Grab an old rotor that fits underneath the jack stand so that the jack stand doesn't sink into the pavement. Get right up on top. Make sure that it fits on it, doesn't wobble back and forth. Make sure the hat is small enough to fit inside the jack stand. We'll go ahead and slide this underneath. And do the same thing on the other side. Alright, let's get the wheels off. I've already loosened up all the lug nuts before jacking the vehicle off. We're going to be replacing all of these lug nuts. I don't know if you guys can see the inside of this or not. Those threads are getting all marred up in there. So we've advised to replace all of the lug nuts. Just enough under the cross member that if it drops, it won't hurt the rim or the tire or the truck. Now we got extractor holes. Let's get this thing torn apart. Now let's get the pet trainer down underneath here so we don't make a mess. Get the screws out of here. Set those down on the pet trainer. Now we'll use a C-clamp against the brake pads. We'll push it back in just enough so that we can get the brake pads over the rotor. If they come off with the pads come off with the caliper. In this case, we're just backing it off so we get the caliper off. And it allows us to verify that both of the pistons are moving okay. We're going to need our pair of hooks for hanging the caliper. One for this side, one for the other side. Brake line's getting a little rusty. This part right here will eventually pinch and cut off the line, so that's something to be mindful of. Let's see, ball joint, everything looks good. Ball joint, boot looks good. Axle boot looks good. Sway bar links secure, look good. Bushings, upper control arm bushings Lower control arm bushings, everything over here looks good. So let's get this off, hung up on the hook. Let's get this off. And inspect the pistons inside. The boots look good. There's no hair, no holes, no tears, no burn marks. Don't see any damage. Let's get this sprayed down and cleaned off before we push the pistons back in. Make sure you're wearing eye protection. You don't spray yourself in the eye. So we get some of this stuff off of here before we push these pistons all the way back in. You don't want to push any of that grime in with it. Again, don't spray towards yourself or into something that's aimed towards you, because you're going to get a bath. It stings. Alright, now spray it down really good. What we're going to do is, we've got fresh fluid in the master cylinder. We don't want to pump the old fluid back up into the master cylinder when we push these pistons in. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen up the bleed screw. Put the 7/16 fits on it perfectly. So we're going to use the 7/16 to loosen this up. Got a pair of line lock pliers that I made out of small needle nose vice grips. Pieces of hose on there. This will help prevent damage to the hose. We're going to squeeze the hose with this very lightly, just to block flow from going up into the master cylinder and to prevent air from getting up in. And again, this is just enough to cut off the flow without damaging or squeezing the hose to the point of damage. So it's very light. Let's get that loosened up. These can be very fragile and break very easily, so back and forth a little bit. Let the threads get wet. A little bit of fluid coming out now. Get our bleeder hose hooked up. And into our catch container so it doesn't tip over. Now we're going to go ahead and get that cracked open some more. And we're going to use the C-clamp, and we're going to push the pistons back a little further. You can already see the fluid coming through. So if I turn, I take this and pull it out of the oil, or out of the brake fluid, and hold it up, you'll be able to see the fluid coming out through as I'm cranking on this. It's a little discolored, but not bad. But we don't want to pump any of this up into the master cylinder because that's filled with brand spanking new fluid. So we'll put this back down into the drain container and get the other one. Now we've already taken the caliper off and cleaned up the piston boots, so we're not pushing any crap back into the bore with the piston boots. And it's about as far as I can get this with it on the bracket. So we're going to take this top bolt back out now. And we're going to take this tool right here, set it right there. push these pistons the rest of the way back in with the bleeder screw up at the top. While you're holding pressure on the pistons so that they can't suck any air back in, we're going to close that bleed screw back up. Go ahead and remove the bleed hose. And remove the brake piston retraction tool. And now we're going to put the piston, or the caliper, up and out of the way, where it's safe, using the hook that we brought out before. And just anywhere it'll hook, as long as you don't hook it on the wires. You'll just hold it up and out of the way. You remove the line lock pliers at the same time if you want. Now we'll get to the brake pads, which are very stuck. Now we've got our caliper up and out of the way. Started working on the brake pads and the caliper. Your slide pins, you move in and out nice and easy. So that's going to be good. We're going to take these out, clean out the old lube, put in some new lube. Let's get these brake pads off of here. Like I said, they're stuck. Now also I want you to take note that this edge right here is smooth with the rotor. This one here's got two bumps. These two bumps are the inboard brake pad. The new pads, we'll show you those in a few minutes, have got two ears and these two don't. So this is what happens in the salt belt when you do not treat your caliper brackets accordingly. Your brake pads get stuck. Very stuck. In New England, a lot of people don't do their brake jobs right, and this is the result of what ends up happening. So we're going to show you how to do these brakes and do them the right way. I'm going to put my little cover back on before I lose it. Don't want to lose those. Now let's get this bracket unbolted. These are 21 millimeter. Instead of using the socket, 21 millimeter wrench. Put that on there, and then I'm going to hit this with the hammer a couple of times, just to help loosen it up. Right here, we don't run the chance of breaking a bolt. Now I can use the breaker bar on them. Go ahead and remove your caliper bracket bolts. Pretty hefty bolts. Previous owner, or the owner previously did his brakes and he anti-seized his bolts. Kind of glad he did, because they're coming out nice and smoothly. also anti-seized. There's our bracket with the stuck brake pads. We'll knock these brake pads the rest of the way out. And keep in mind, again, that the 2 humps, that's your inboard brake pad. Now, I want to show you right here. That piece right there pushed against there, really tight. Turn sideways, you can see the fresh metal right there and right there. It's because this has been pinched so hard. We're going to try to get these the rest of the way out. You'll also note that there's some cracks in here. See, it gets you a light there. You see the cracks? That's from being literally bent as the pistons are pushing these against the rotor and stressing them, bending them, and cracking them. These brake pads are not all that worn, but they were very, very, very stuck. You can see all the nice shiny metal. We're going to make sure that this does not happen again. Now let's get this rotor off. Now we're going to take a couple of bolts and a little bit of penetrating oil, spray that right into the threads and right around the top of the hub. It can soak in a little bit. Now we're going to take these 2 bolts and thread them in. There's my 14. Now we're just going to give it a little bit of a buzz. A little bit of a buzz. A little bit of a buzz. Just to get a little bit of movement. Look at all that crust. That rotor has not been seeing any friction. So this right here is all because the brake pads were stuck in the bracket and couldn't move. Slide pins worked good, pistons worked good. This is all because the ears of the brake pads got stuck in the bracket. Now we're going to need to get this hub all cleaned up. Get all this rust scale off of here, especially these 2 round landings. We need to get those cleaned up so that the rotor can mate flat and everything can sit nice and even without any kind of a wobble. So we're going to clean all of this up. First thing we're going to do is give it a spray down a brake cleaner, get any residual oil out of it. And then we'll grab the impact, the hub buddy. Spots where there's a lot of scale on here, we've got to get the scale off. Otherwise the rotor will not be able to sit flat on this. Now sometimes when the scaling is really thick like this, you can take a small hammer and just go around the outside and literally shatter the rust off. And you'll be able to see the spots all the way around where the rust is scaled and it's built up. Just tap on the rust and it'll shatter and come right off. Now I recommend a lightweight hammer to do this because you don't want to go putting dents in this. Now I go back and clean it up again. can see some spots are pretty stubborn, but look at that, all nice and smooth all the way around now. Let's get the inside edge done. There we go. Spray it down again. Dust some crap off of it. As soon as that's dry, we're going to spray it with some fluid film. Now, this backing plate is getting all kind of rusty and crusty. So again, the fluid film will saturate all of this. That'll help slow down the rust. If you don't like the smell of sour milk, don't breathe while you're spraying this stuff. Get it around where your caliper bracket mounts also, and then get the hub really good all the way around the outside edge of it, because this is where it's going to lock itself to the rotor. Once everything here's done, let's get the rotor prepped. Take the new rotors, lay them down upside down, outside bottom, whatever. We're going to clean all of the brake surface here and in here on both of these. So just spray them down, get them good and wet. Grab a towel. Towel, fold it into quarters. Spray it down really good with brake cleaner, and then go ahead and just wipe down that edge. Don't worry about the fuzzies that you're leaving behind, because you're going to rinse those back off when you're done. If your brake cleaner is good brake cleaner, your cloths will dissolve on you. You use a shop towel as opposed to the paper towels, but that's up to you. Again, get both of them. Stand it up, spray it off again, get all the lint off of it. The lint that you sprayed on or got on it from the pot, spray all of that off. Plan on going through a couple of cans of brake cleaner. And repeat on the other one. Another can of brake cleaner. And repeat. Same thing. Make sure there's no oil left on these rotors. Otherwise your brake pads will not bed in properly. And you will not be able to maximize the lifespan of your brake pads. Soap and water, I've heard many times. Just use dish soap and water, Dawn dish detergent. Dry them up real good when you're done so they don't instantly flash rust on you. But that should work. So, let's get this one up, get this one cleaned off on both sides. That'll get all the lint off of here. Alright. Now that this side's all ready, is dry, blow on it a little. You got good brake cleaner, it'll dry really fast. Now we go ahead and put this on the side that we've already fluid filmed. Take the rotor, set the rotor right over the lugs, put it all the way on. right there. We'll hold our rotor nice and secure for when we put the caliper back on. Let's finish cleaning this side up and then do the same thing on the other side. And the caliper bracket. We're going to pop the hardware out. We're going to pull these pins out. A little bit of rust in there. So we're going to pull these out, clean these up. That one still got grease up the top. That's good. And get this thing reconditioned and ready to put it back on. Now, first thing we're going to do is get these little clips out of here. And by whatever means you can find, get them out. Be careful, these little stinkers can cut you if you're not careful. All 4 of them out. Even the undersides of them are pretty bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean up the bracket where these fit. So in the meantime, we're going to leave these in. We don't get any crap in there. I'm going to clean them out anyways, but we got to get these landings right here. Got to get these landings right here all cleaned up. There's a lot of scaling on both sides. Welcome to New England. Welcome to the Salt Belt. Let's look and see what we've accomplished. Okay, so now we've got to get the flat down here on the bottom. Now, for all you guys that are kind of new to this stuff, we're going to do a trial run with the brake pads, make sure that everything is moving the way it should be. So before we're treating these surfaces, we're just going to take the hardware clips as they are. We're going to put these in. These little things are a stinker to get in because this is a spring-loaded clip on this side, so you're going to have to do this side first from the outside, push inward, and it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to kid you. What I did is I grabbed a pair of pliers and I squeezed between the outer part of the ear and the bracket with just enough to help me get it over the edge. That's all there is to it. Just a little, very little pressure, very little. But I can't do this with just my finger to get it far enough to snap on each and every one of these times. So again, just a tiny little bit of pressure. Get the bottom, the outside first, and then just a little squeeze between the bracket and the outer ear, and it'll click right into place. Same thing on the other side. Once your hardware clips are in place, and they're seated all the way down where they're supposed to be, some are a little stubborn. The curve is your inboard. It goes right in here like this. Stand that up on end. The other one in like this from this side. And stand those up on end. Now, as long as these can move in and out like this easily on both sides, you have verified that you've cleaned up the bracket well enough just to coat everything and reassemble it. If you can't move these brake pads around nice and easily in here, get into this bracket some more. Get into this bracket some more and clean up these landings some more. Continue to do this until all of this stuff fits together and moves easily. If you don't, your brake system will lock up on you again in a very short period of time due to rust. This is in New England, Salt Belt. Can't emphasize this enough. This is absolutely incredibly important. and people around here have a tendency to just not like to do it because it takes too long. But if you don't do this, your brake job will not last, and you will have to do it again long before your brake pads wear out. You can use brake grease or anti-seize, anything that's not water soluble. I'm going to be getting a big tub of brake grease pretty soon, giving that a try, but for the time being, still using the anti-seize on this part here. So I haven't seen any of my brakes get stuck yet. So as far as I'm concerned, this works. Now let's go ahead and get the hardware back in. That one's springing back up, so I'm going to redo this one. Don't want these springing back up. Once they're seated, not springing back up, they're good to go. Now let's get these slides, slide and slide pins taken care of. Again, blue paper towels and brake cleaner. Get all the old grease off the pin. Make sure you inspect the pin for pitting, rust, any kind of damage. So this one's got a little bit of a polish on it, but it's not really worn in or grooved. So this is going to continue to slide in and out nice and easily. Take that, fill this up with some brake cleaner, again not pointing towards your face. Filled up, and we'll grab a little gun cleaning brush. We're going to get in here, we're going to agitate the old grease that's in here. Get all of the old grease out. Don't put that down your pet trainer, or it'll get stuck to your pet trainer. Coming out nice and clean. Take a little peek down inside, all nice and clean. Let it dry out for a few seconds. Brand spanking new tube of Ceramic. Ran out of the Silla Glide. We're going to have to cut the end off of this. Protector back on. My lovely daughter bought me this knife, and it has come in quite handy. It's got the little seat belt cutter tool in it, the glass breaking tool in it, nice little sharp blade, and it fits conveniently right there. Alright, now that's all cleaned out. Let's get some grease pin. I like to twist it just to get a nice even dispersion of it all the way around. Work it in and out a couple of times. A little bit more. Don't want too much because it can get stuck in here. Wrinkle, 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 wrinkle. That's how we know we got a good seal. Let's get the other one taken care of. And usually what I will do whenever I see rust up here like this is I'll take a wire brush to it, clean it up. In this case, the file will do just fine. Oh, this stuff is soft and mushy. Anytime you're filing a pin, rotate the pin while you're filing. Otherwise you can flat spot it. You don't want to do that because that'll create a leak. Once you got that cleaned up, I'm going to clean that out. And we're going to clean the brush again. A little bit of yuck around the outside of this boot. Be careful you don't want to perforate the boot. That dry out for a couple of seconds. Alright, now some more grease on the pin. It's all coated. Again. Wrinkle. Now the bracket's ready to put back on. Let's get some blue thread locker. We're going to put a little bit on those carrier bolts. And some of this anti-seize off of here because we don't want it on too much on the threads itself. Now that we've got our threading on our bolts cleaned up a little bit, we're going to put one big drop. The same thing with the other one big drop. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of these and I'm just going to lock the threads together and run it around a couple of times like this just to distribute the thread locker. It's not much, but it'll help. Now we're going to take the bracket and bolts in place. Take our bracket, put our bracket up in place. And we're going to thread our carrier bolts in. Run them all the way down finger tight, if you can get them all the way down finger tight. Basically tighten them both down to the point where it almost takes all the wiggle out of the bracket. what I like to do is just keep wiggling that bracket until I get these bolts seated. That way there, when I do torque these bolts down, they don't twist or warp the bracket. And we'll go ahead and tighten those down. A little at a time, top to bottom. It's not really that critical, but I like to just cover my bases and make sure I don't warp anything. And then we'll apply proper torque to these. And then we go ahead and put the brake pads in place. And then the caliper back on. Put a little drop of the blue thread locker on each one of the caliper bolts as well. Get that out of the way. Okay, now let's get the brake pads on. Remember, the one with the bumps goes on the inboard. And the one without the bumps goes on the outboard. Everything moves nice and easily. What we're going to do is we're going to make things moving easier. We're going to put a little grease right on these ears and in those grooves where these ride. Just a little bit. Don't get any of this on your rotor. And then we're going to do the same thing on the ears of the brake pads themselves. Coat all the way around the ear. Don't need a lot, just a little bit. Go ahead and put that one in. Just on the ears. Nowhere else. Now the drawback around here is that this will collect salt and sand and lots of other kind of contaminants. As long as it doesn't get in between the ears of the brake pads and the hardware clips, it will not cause any kind of a problem. Oh, look at that, nice and easy. Okay, they don't rattle around, but they do move nice and easy. These brakes are going to work beautifully. Now we can go ahead and take the caliper, bring the caliper back down. What we're going to do before we do this, we're going to help make sure that this thing doesn't go making any noise, and we're going to coat the surface of the piston and the ears of the caliper with a little bit of the anti-seize so that it can cut down on any potential chatter or squeal. Just a little light coating around the pistons. Nothing else but the pistons. You don't want to get the boot, because that'll just attract dirt to the boot, and we don't want to do that. Just a little bit on the ears of the caliper. Let's get this bracket down out of here. Let's see what I'm doing here. And we'll get this ear, here, this one's here. Get these coated up pretty good. Just a little bit is all it really takes. No big globs. Just the points where it makes contact with the brake pad. Again, this is just to cut down on chatter and squeal, eliminate potential vibration. Okay. Just don't want to drop the caliper. Now take the caliper, make sure that you do not have any twist in your line, and then bring that down and set that into place. Push in your pins, make sure your caliper can slide down over the pins, and then go ahead and put your caliper bolts in. sure your orientation of your caliper pins is correct before tightening your bolts down. And then torque those down. Respect. And last but not least, let's make sure that the fluid is topped off. The level's right here. So we're gonna add a little bit. This is .4. Can't really see it well, but .4. And there's Chris, the owner of the truck. Get right up to the full mark. Right. Beautiful. There's all 4 brand new brakes, front and rear. Everything's cleaned up, inspected, topped off, and ready to go. There you go. Front brakes, 2014 F-150. Say hi to Chris, 723 Productions. We have the link down in the description below. If you guys felt this one to be helpful, if you guys found that one helpful, interesting, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell for upcoming videos, and don't forget, you got no more excuses. Pick up those wrenches.